Hello, everybody. We are pre-recorded. I was going to say we were live. We're pre-recorded. So today, I got my good friend Shane is here. If you guys don't know who I am, my name is Jeff, and I go by the YouTube channel eBay Addicts. And my guest here is Shane, Rise and Grind Picker. And today, the title of the video is going to be growing and scaling your eBay business. So that's going to be what we're going to talk a little bit about today. So Shane, how are you doing today, man?
Good, man. It's been a busy Sunday, and I think, well, Sunday, Monday, however you want to put it, Sunday. It's just been a busy weekend. I think as I gear up to move into the warehouse, it's just going to be a lot of work kind of prepping and getting ready. So,
yeah. So if you guys don't know, Shane's in the process of buying a big commercial building. So he's in the process of moving and getting his contract signed and all of that. So today we're going to talk a little bit about helping you guys grow and to scale your business. Last week we talked about some tips and tricks to help out eBay for beginners. This week we're going to talk about what you need to do to grow and scale your business. Not just me, but a lot of resellers have this issue, Shane, where they go out, they're out there, they're all gassed up, they're all excited, and they're out here looking for merchandise. They hit up a couple yard sales. They go to the thrift store. They go do retail arbitrage, and it's like 3 strikes and you're out. It's like, hey, I went to Walmart. I looked at the clearance section, came home with nothing. Went to the thrift store. A lot of thrift stores are raising their prices. So either you're overpaying for the merchandise and it cuts into your profit margins, or sometimes you just don't find anything. That happens. I went to a thrift store the other day, and I went in there and I looked around, and I was there for maybe 15, 20 minutes. The guy said, hey, everything in the thrift store is 30% off. Well, 30% off of items that you don't want doesn't really help you, So I went in there, looked around, didn't find any merchandise. And then, like I said, a lot of these other corporate stores like Goodwills are just starting to raise their prices up. So if people are going in there and they're looking for merchandise, and it used to be maybe they're looking for, a pair of blue jeans, and maybe the pair of blue jeans used to be $2, and now they want $5 for the same pair of blue jeans. Now, if you could only sell them for 20, 25 bucks, it starts to cut into your profit margin. I'm sure you have a similar experience where you're at, right?
yeah, I mean, here's the thing is I kind of adapted to it before all this, because the bad part about where I live is they actually made all the Goodwill's boutique stores literally like 4 years ago. So I had to adapt and just get out of the thrifting model pretty much altogether. I only thrift like when I just maybe happen to be around a store. I do go to the Goodwill bins a lot because I feel like that's the only scalable thrifting model there is. Goodwill bins, 100% scalable. If you have a Goodwill bins, you can go there and get 100 pieces of clothing a day and literally list 100 items a day. Easy to do that. But for me, like I had to kind of switch my model away from thrifting several years ago, because like I literally walked in my Goodwill one day and the door was locked and they shut it down because there was a water leak. This was like 3-4 years ago. I go to the other Goodwill and they just converted it to a boutique store. And I walk in and there's Affliction jeans on the shelf for $27. So then the other Goodwill opens back up 3 months later, and it's a boutique store too. So,
yeah. And some of the Goodwills in some of the cities now, they're taking some of the good merchandise and they're pulling it from the Goodwills and they're selling it on shopgoodwill.com website as well. So maybe certain merchandise you're looking for, like video games or electronics, that may not even be put out there on the shelves anymore. My video game consoles, controllers, game systems, sometimes they send them to the Goodwills .com's website. So you're out here looking and hunting for merchandise and you just can't find any, or like you said, the merchandise that you do find is overpriced. So we're trying to talk about maybe ways to help you guys find alternative routes or alternative ways to look for merchandise, because whether your business model is yard selling or thrift stores or retail arbitrage, there's sometimes you're just going to strike out, and it's not your fault. You're there, you're hunting, you're looking for merchandise, and you're going down the aisles. Maybe you're checking the clearance section. Maybe you're like me, you're hitting the thrift stores, and some weeks, you find a whole pile of stuff, and some weeks you don't. Sometimes I go to the thrift store and I come home and I only bring home 5 items. Well, if I bring home 5 items and I sold 10 or 15 that day, my sales are going to start going down because you're listing less items than what you're selling,
Well, and I think here's the thing though too. I think when you start out in reselling, excuse me, when you first start out in reselling, I think everyone starts out at the same level. It's the thrifting model. It's, hey, I'm going to go thrift. And I mean, when I started, it was the same thing. I think everybody has to start from the same place before they scale their business up, because I I'm just now scaling mine up after, I mean, I've been really hardcore reselling for 8 years. Last like 2 years ago when I went full time, I started scaling mine up a little bit before I went full time. And that's when I realized like the thrifting model, if you're trying to scale it, doesn't work. But it does if you're part time, because like you can go find a couple pieces of clothing that sell for $100 and quick flip them, right? And then boom, like you just reinvest that money.
Yeah, well, reinvesting your money is important, but just having physical inventory on hand for you to list and ship, that's really important. So if the one of the key important things here is having the merchandise, listing it, and then reinvesting your money, shipping it, and then reinvesting your money back in your business so it can grow and scale. So I'm at right now, eventually, I know when I talk to normal people, they kind of look at me like I'm crazy, but I have 6,500 items on my main eBay store, and I would like to scale it to 10,000 items soon. And then eventually I would like to grow and scale my business to 50,000 items. So what happens is most of the items that I sell or media items are like CDs, DVDs, Blu-rays, video games, VHS tapes, items like that. And it falls into these select categories. So I could upgrade my eBay store to the $60 a month plan and then get 50,000 free listings on eBay. So if I have
awesome.
50,000, if eventually, if you think about it, if you have 50,000 free listings, and like today, I sold some DVDs today for $20 a piece, and I've got 50 cents tied up in them. So if you get to the point where you eventually grow and scale your business, where you have 50,000 active items listed, each one of these items you got maybe a quarter, 50 cents, 75 cents, a dollar into, and you're going to make 10, 15, 20x times your money. Why not do that? I can grow and scale my business, and it's only going to cost me $60. So what happens is, I'll drop a link so you guys can see what I'm talking about as far as the items being in the select category. So what happens is at the end of the 30 days, if my item, let's say I have this item here and I have it listed, and at the end of the 30 days it doesn't sell, eBay will auto relist that item and it'll pay zero insertion fees because it's one of the items that's in those select categories. So eventually that's what I would like to do and grow and scale my business. And what do they say? If you what does they say in the Field of Dreams? Like if you book it, they will come, right? So if you list the eBay items, the sales will come. I promise you, right? So that's what I wanted to do. And when I talk to Shane, me and Shane talk, I don't know, every week, every other week. And when I talked to Shane, even before we started this podcast, and I didn't even tell him, but Shane's like, me too, dude. I want to have 10,000 items active listed on eBay. So there's different business models. There's some people that do really well with low numbers. But for me, the way that I see it, the way that I'm going to try to grow and to scale my business is just velocity. I'm going to try to list as many items as I can and profitable items and go ahead and list them on the eBay platform. And like I said, my first milestone is just to hit 10,000 active items listed on eBay. And that's one of your goals as well, Shane, right?
Yeah. I mean, realistically, that's the whole reason, I'm buying the warehouse and stuff is I've ran out of room here. I got, I'll tell you exactly how many I got. 3,356 items listed on eBay, but I don't really, I sell a little bit of everything. I sell clothing. I started out in clothing on eBay. I still sell clothing, a lot of clothing, and I sell a lot of other random hard goods and stuff like that. So I got $145,000 listed in 3,300 items, which is pretty good. And so my goal would be to try to get to 10,000 items. But I list a lot of like big items. I don't know how to describe it. Like back there, I have like some ultra rare Sony cabinets I'm selling, and like they're in a box sealed, but the box is like 16 by like 15 by like 4, but I'm selling them for 500 and some dollars a pop. So, I'm a firm believer in like, I try to run my store off of like the 3 model store, which is like good, better, and best. So my best items are higher priced, and then I have medium priced items, and then I do list some quite a bit of lower end stuff too. It's hard to find. It's hard to find the home runs or the $100 plus items. It's really hard to find those items.
Yeah.
So I'm not below listing 60 items at $20 items.
Well, here's the thing, Shane. A lot of people don't know, or they don't want to accept this truth that on eBay, 90% of all the items that sell on eBay are items that are $30 and below. So once your item is listed on the eBay platform and it starts to cross over that $30 threshold of the item being listed for over $30, you've already cut out 90% of your buyer pool of people that wanted to buy your item. So they were interested, maybe they wanted to buy your item, and because you listed it for $40 instead of $29.99, you've already lost 90% of your buyer pool. So majority of my items will stay $30 and below into that threshold, and I'm just trying to sell a bunch of items at lower cost dollar items as opposed to selling high ticket items for higher margins. But how many $100 items are you going to sell a day, right? Like I've already sold, I don't know, 5 or 6 items already so far since before the podcast started that were $20 items. And so maybe out of let's say I sold 5 of them so far, and they're $20 items, and let's say I paid 50 cents a piece for them times 5. I've turned $2.50 into $100 worth of sales. So that's kind of my model. Is I want to be able to grow and scale my business over time. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. People think like, oh, I'm going to get into this business and overnight I'm going to be making tens of thousands of dollars, and it's just not realistic.
I always have this thing, Jeff. I hadn't remembered when you're talking. I'm like, oh, I can't forget it. So I always say that I save money by selling the home runs. I pay my bills by selling $20 or lower items.
Right.
That's totally the truth. You pay your bills when you're full time by selling items $20 or less, because people don't think about spending money on a $10 or $15 or $20 item. They just buy it. They don't care. They buy it. And that's the easiest way to make a lot of sales, is list $20 or lower. I have a ton of items. I have like right now, I think 7 or 8 pages in my store that's just like $20 or lower items.
Yeah.
But I think everybody like that does reselling. And here's what I did. Like I kind of watched these kind of podcasts when I first started. Before I started YouTube, I watched these kind of podcasts, and I kind of like watched a little bit of everyone. And I kind of did what they did. And then eventually I found my own style. You know what I mean? Of how I wanted to run my business. And I think everybody does that. And then you find your own style and you're like, this is what I want to do, Yeah,
it's funny that you said that, because before I started my own YouTube channel, I watched people like you, Rockstar Flipper, Rally Roots, Bearded Picker. There was a whole variety of people.
See,
John Cincinnati Picker.
Everyone starts out like that. They watch everyone.
Yeah.
And then they start doing like their own stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, and you just kind of like scratch your itch, and they get you because you see all these other people doing it, and you're like, man, these people out here doing it, I can do it too. So, but today, what I wanted to do is kind of help you guys out and maybe share some tips and tricks with you guys, because for me, I still go out and go to yard sales. I still go out and do estate sales sometimes. I still hit up thrift stores. But majority of my business model has kind of shifted to buying in bulk. Like right now, I'll show you on my phone. What I've been shifting towards is buying items where I can press a button, and then all of a sudden, this item that I bought, for example, here's one right here that I'm watching an item, right? So I'll try to pull it up so you guys can see it. So this one right here, it says 1,000 CDs, right? They're all brand new in the shrink wrap. And their total cost, including free shipping, is $378, right? So without me having to leave the house, without having to be out in 100-degree heat or pouring down rain, all I have to do is press a button and say add to cart, and then all of a sudden I spent my $380, which means I've got 38 cents a piece per item, 40 cents a piece per
And you
item.
have 1,000 items to list.
1,000 items show up at my door, and they're all brand new in the shrink wrap. So my average sell for a CD is somewhere between $15 and $20. But let's say hypothetically, if I only get $10 a piece per item times 1,000, you've got $10,000 worth of merchandise that just showed up at your door, and my buy cost was what? Less than $400. So you guys got to look out for things like that. And this is called, if you guys are new to reselling, this strategy is called online arbitrage. So I'm just sharing you guys one of my strategies that I do, and you can see it says new lot, 1,000 CDs, assorted mixed titles and genres, and it'll say $379, and I just press one button, and then 1,000 items will just show up and be shipped to my door.
And you got tracking on it, and you see when it's going to show up and everything.
Yeah, and then when it shows up, like I said, it's brand new in the shrink wrap. I don't have to do a lot of cleaning. I don't have to do a lot of testing. It's not like I'm cleaning a dirty pair of shoes. And then all I'm doing is just pulling them up, scanning the barcode, and take a picture front and back, list it. Sometimes if they're new in the shrink wrap, sometimes I'll use the box art, and it goes by quick and easy. And like I said, that's how you're going to start growing and scaling your business, when you're getting 100, 500, or 1,000 items at a time, as opposed to the thrifting model where you're like, hey, I came here to the thrift store, I found 5 items, and maybe you can turn your $5 into $100 with those 5 items. But think about what you're doing. You spent your time, you filled your gas tank up, maybe you put 20, 30 bucks in your gas tank, you're trying to find a parking spot, you're waiting in line to check out, you're fighting through all the crowds and traffic of everybody else that's looking for the same merchandise you are, and maybe you'll come home with 4 or 5 items or 10 items, So
or maybe you'll come home with a black eye. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe you'll come home with nothing, So it's just important to think about alternative ways of things that you can look at to go sourcing, where you can receive, 100, 500, 1,000 items at one time, is instead of just going around and, maybe you wrote, if that's fun and enjoyable to you, and you want to go on a Saturday and say, hey, we're going to hit 10, 15 yard sales in one day, great. I had days where I'll say, hey, I want to go hit up 10 pawn shops in one day, and so it's fun to go do that. But I wouldn't make that like where you have to make that money to pay your bills, because if you get there and you don't find anything, or the merchandise that you get, like I said, some of the stuff is kind of banged up, or you come home with 4 or 5 items, you want to be able to kind of grow and scale your business, like I said, over time. It's not going to be overnight,
See, I think the biggest, so this is kind of like the outside looking in. I think the biggest shtick with like a lot of resellers, and I've said this from day one, because I personally, everything I say, it's from my personal experience. So if I say this, I don't want it to offend anyone. It's from me making the same mistake. A lot of resellers, I think the reason you see a lot of resellers come and go, or a lot go full time and go back to a job, and this has to do directly with scaling your business, is they don't keep a schedule. That's the biggest issue, because when I first went full time, I did not keep a schedule. I went all willy-nilly, and I'm like, I'm free. And then I realized I wasn't free. I still have a job to do, and it's reselling. And I literally had to start scheduling my schedule in Google Calendars. And I think that's a huge issue with people that like are going to go full time. Like they think, hey, I'm going to be free. It's really not.
Well, in a sense, you're free, but you have to kind of make up your own work schedule. Me, I'm a night person. Some people's brains, they're one of those people that want to go get a coffee from Starbucks and they're wide awake at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm a night person. That's you. I'm a night person. So I do all of my best work like at 11, 12, midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm wide awake and I'm in my room scanning, listing items. So just like Shane is saying, whether you're trying to grow and scale your business, come up with some type of schedule. So for me, I like working at night because no one's calling me, no one's texting me, no one's knocking on the door, no one needs anything. I shut my door, I turn my tunes on, and sometimes I'm watching YouTube videos or listening to podcasts like this in the background, or sometimes I'm just jamming out, listening to my music, and then I'll get a whole pile of items stacked up, and I'll just start cranking out listings, and and going that route. But it's important, like Shane said, you have to make time to take photographs. You have to list the items. You have to ship out all your items on time. Then also you're having to deal with, customer returns or someone leaves you negative feedback. So for you to sit down and come up with a time where you just block out a certain time and say, okay, from this time to this time, I'm going to sit down and list items. Like, it's important, because if you don't do that, when is it going to get done, right?
Well, and the most part is, like, from what I've known about being full-time, like, I can, if I really, really have to find stuff, I can find stuff. Like, I've kind of gotten out of the thrifting model, but you can find stuff at like auctions like you can fill your van up for $200, but if you're not going to list it, then it's not going to do you any good. And I learned that myself because I had a death pile behind me for like 3 years in every video I done, but I was more Amazon, and I did Amazon because it was easy. It was, oh, I'm going to scan this in, I'm going to send it off, and that's it. And that's literally what it was. And when you realize I'm heavier eBay now, you realize that pictures take a while. Like, if you're going to list 30 items a day, like, I try to set how many items I'm going to list every day, and my number is no less than 30. Now I usually list more than that, but if I want to take a day off, I'll take a day off, and I know I just have to list more up to that point. But for the most part, man, a schedule is so foundation. It is the biggest foundation, I think, of scaling your business, because if you don't have a schedule, you're not going to be ready to scale it, because you're going to be selling like 30 items a day, and then you got to ship those out. How are you going to ship 30 items out? You know what I mean? Like, it's a lot to think about.
Yeah, well, you shipped out those 30 items, and guess what? You have to replenish and restock the shelves. So now you need to list at least 30 items, if not more, to kind of restock the shelves for your eBay store. So those are the key things that you need to think about. Is one is physically having the inventory to list. How are you going to go source? Where are you going to get inventory from? Two, coming up with a schedule to sit down and actually list the items, because there's, a lot of resellers will fail at that, because maybe they love shopping. They're really good at finding good deals. But if it just sits in your death pile in a closet and you don't get around to listing it, you're not going to be able to grow and scale your business. And the third thing that I really wanted to talk about is reinvesting capital in your business. This is, out of all the three things we talked about today, this is probably the one thing that probably frustrates me the most, because it's like, I want some other people to be really successful, and you have to be able to take your capital and take that money and reinvest your money back in your business. Because when you're first getting started, if you got money, if you got merchandise for free that somebody gave you, or you found items laying around the house, or you listed your first 1,000 items on eBay, and you don't have a lot of money tied up in that merchandise, and then now you're looking at your 90-day total of how much cash flow you have coming in, don't take that money out of your eBay business and go on a vacation or buy a new watch or a new pair of Jordans or something. You have to take a good chunk of that money and reinvest it back in your business, or your business is not going to grow. It's not going to grow. So like we talked about, is having a schedule, finding items. Like I said, it's great to go to thrift stores or yard sales and estate sales, but actually getting bulk merchandise would be important. There's a lot of people that get pallets. There's people that do storage units. There's people that do auctions. I just showed you guys one way I do it. It's just like buying big bulk lots on eBay, and you just type in whatever it is you're looking for. It doesn't have to be CDs. It can be anything. Just type in wholesale. It could be wholesale lots. Yeah, it could be books. It could be whatever it is you're looking for. So clothing, whatever it is, and then you're just going to type it in. So like right now, I'm just going to type it in just to see what comes up. So I'm going to type in video games wholesale lot, and then we're just going to see what pops up, right?
Yeah.
So I just typed it in just now, and then you can see right here, see what kind of wholesale lots just popped up. As you can see, items will start popping up. So this one here is a lot of 125 or 25 games. This one here is like, here's one right here. This is, I don't know if you guys can see it or not, but this is a lot of 50 Nintendo Wii games, and the starting bid is $1. So I'm just using this as an illustration. Just type in wholesale lots. So, but as far as reinvesting your capital, how important, because you've been reselling for a long time, Shane. So how important is it for you to reinvest your money back in your business?
It is the most vital, because here's the reason why. Okay. You have, it's called cash flow, and Jeff knows this, and a lot of people may know this watching, but there's going to be some that don't. It's called cash flow. And what happens is if you overextend your buying and then your bank account's zero, you have all this stuff to list, which is a good situation. But if you list everything and you're still not selling stuff and you're still overextended, that's an issue. So managing your cash and knowing when to invest, and I guess here's the point, is knowing how big to buy and not when to buy too big. Because a lot of people, they buy these big buys, they spend all their money, and then they're like, oh man, I got my bills due next month. I didn't go full-time reselling until I had about a year's worth of salary saved up in my bank account, and then I went full-time reselling. I had 1 year's salary saved back.
Yeah. So, but yeah, like Shane said, it's really important for you to be able to grow and scale your business. And if you don't have cash flow, you don't have money in your account to go ahead and put money, to withdraw money out of your business to go sourcing to get more inventory, your sales are going to slowly start gradually going down, because you have to take a good chunk of that and reinvest it to have capital to go out and go sourcing to get more inventory, right?
Yep. Absolutely, man. And that's the whole key, is you can't overextend yourself. You got to stay in the click. It's where you have cash to pay your bills and you can spend whatever you need to spend to make X amount. It's all about, here's the thing. This is the easiest concept to remember. I was struggling when I first went full time, and I had one of my best friends of all time. He's an Amazon seller. I'm not going to say his name because he doesn't do YouTube, sells a couple million a year. And he said, do you want to know the easiest way to sell $1 million on Amazon? And I'm like, yeah. And he said, send in $1 million worth of inventory. Duh. That's the biggest hack I've ever been told ever. Because here's the thing. If you're not listing stuff, you're not going to sell. And I've seen people not list their way into working a full-time job. They just don't list, and then they're working a job. And then they're in they're in the hamster wheel again. The biggest hack is to just list.
Yeah, well, everything that we talked about today, all three of those things are really important. Having the merchandise to list, sitting down, actually listing it, so your items don't just sit up and stack in a death pile and don't get listed. And then, step 3 is reinvesting your cash flow back in your business to buy more merchandise. So you get the merchandise, you list it, you reinvest it, and you take the reinvestment money to go get more merchandise. You can start listing, you can go sourcing again to start listing. So, I mean, yeah, that's kind of really important. Like, that's the biggest thing I used to tell everybody is just list. Like, there's a customer right now that's looking for that item, that wants to buy that item that you have sitting over there that you haven't listed yet. And they're on there right now looking for that item. So you're going to have to just figure out a strategy. You're going to have to work with time management. Maybe you get up a couple hours earlier before the kids get up to go to school in the morning. Maybe you stay up an hour or two later, but you're going to have to come up with some time in your schedule and routine to list the items. You're going to have to figure out a way where you're like, hey, I don't want to withdraw all the money and go to a trip to Vegas or go on a vacation to the beach or whatever for spring break. Like, you're going to have to take that capital and reinvest it in your business. And, another thing is you have to go out and get the, hunt and find the inventory. So we're trying to give you 3 different tips and tricks and strategy for those 3 things. 1 is just going and getting the inventory. 2 is kind of time management thing. And the third thing I think is probably one of the most difficult parts is just kind of being disciplined with your finances. Because I'm not trying to give you guys personal financial advice. We're just speaking as 2 resellers of saying, hey man, if I went every month and took this extra $500 or $1,000 a month and bought inventory with it, what could that turn into, right? What would I be able to do with that money, right?
Mm-hmm. And the one thing you got to realize is, you're not listing to sell the items right then. So you got to understand there's a couple months in between where you're going to sell these items and stuff. And the other thing is, one of the other biggest mistakes I've seen new full-time resellers do is they go sourcing every day. I honestly don't source every day. I source probably maybe 2 times or less a week. I try to source one time a week and just buy a lot at once, and then just spend the rest of the week listing. That's what I try to do. Right now, I'm actually hoarding inventory and buying way overbuying and way overextending myself because I want inventory left over when I get this warehouse. I want to move it all in just in case I insure myself if our state gets shut down again due to, you know, the pandemic, that I can have stuff to list. And I think it's important to think ahead. You kind of got to realistically, I think, kind of look at your business and really place yourself in the best position to win.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. You want to be able to grow and scale your business, and but yeah, one of the things is, Shane, most of the resellers that I talk to, they don't have a problem finding inventory because there's literally inventory everywhere. I mean,
Yep.
you could go to yard sales, thrift stores, estate sales, pawn shops, retail arbitrage, online arbitrage, auctions. We mentioned high bid before. There's
Mhm.
literally merchandise everywhere. It's just coming up with the time management and being disciplined and saying, okay, from this time from noon till 2 o'clock, I'm going to sit here and crank out these listings. And
Yep.
you can do that. You can, while you're cranking out these listings, you could be listening to music in the background. You could be doing other things to keep your brain occupied, but just get into kind of your zone. Like a basketball
Mhm.
player or a football player gets into the zone before the game starts. Just get
Yep.
locked in and get into your
Yep.
zone. Shut the door, say do not disturb sign on the door, get into your little zone and crank out some listings. Like I said, like I always tell you guys, every time I list an item, whether it's whatever the item is, every time I list that item into my eBay store, I always think to myself, like, listen, this item here, I'm listed this item for $20. I just deposited a $20 check into my eBay bank account. Now that
Mhm.
check may not clear tomorrow. It may take 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, or whatever for that item to sell. But once I hear ka-ching, I know that item cleared the bank, and now I just, my $20 check just cleared the bank. So
Yep.
you're just going to have to train your brain and get motivated, and you're going to have to come up with a schedule or a routine where you sit in your room, where you have a certain workstation where you sit down and list, and you're going to have to figure out, okay, here's my money. I need to take so much X amount of dollars needs to go to taxes. I need to put some away for a rainy day for an emergency fund. And then how much of this money am I going to really reinvest back into my business to buy more merchandise every month? I mean,
Right.
for most resellers, it's, I don't know, maybe a third of their money. What would you say would be a good percentage?
Well, I've done a little bit more aggressive than what most people do. Personally, when I first went full time, this is gonna sound crazy. I still do it. The only bill I have is my house payment. I've paid off everything else. Um, I actually just paid my bills and I tried to reinvest everything back in and double down, or at least invest as much as possible back in. So realistically, I probably invested over half of my profits back into the business. And when I was part time, I invested everything back into the business. So if I made 5 grand, it either went to pay off debt or it went back in the business. I paid a lot of debt off when I was part time. I made money, I would pay debt off, I'd buy inventory. And most of the time when I was part time, I tried to roll over all my profits right back into the business. But I would say at least a third, at least minimum a third.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of debt either right now. I don't have any student loans or car payment or credit card bills. So what I try to do is, like, for this month right now, we're at the end of August, right? So
Yeah.
what I would
Yeah.
do is say, okay, let's say on my job, at my particular job, I would get paid on Mondays. So I would say, okay, I got 5 Mondays this month in August instead of 4. So my very first check I would just pay all my bills for the whole month. I'd pay the rent, all the utilities, car insurance, cell phone bill. I would just pay all my bills for the whole month, like in my very first check. Then I have 4 more checks coming in, and I can go do whatever I want to go do. All the bills are already paid. So
Mhm.
everything has already been paid, as all your overhead expenses are paid for the month. Besides putting gas in your gas tank and groceries, all your expenses are already covered with the very first check. And you have 4 more checks that you can go and you can go buy inventory and capital and do other
Mhm.
things. Because I'm just speaking from somebody in a different point of view that still has a regular
Mhm.
I don't know if you would call it a 9 to 5 job, but a job where I have a check coming in every week. So yeah,
Mhm.
that's what I would do. I would say, okay, I know this month of August there's 5 checks instead of 4. I'm going to take this very first check, pay everything for the whole month. Then after that, I'm good. I don't have to be stressed out about anything. So that's just what I do personally. Anyways, we've been on for 35 minutes, Shane. You have any words of wisdom or final thoughts? This is part 3, and then part 4 is going to be on Shane's channel.
I would say just make a schedule. Watch different YouTubers, see, kind of get a understanding on how this business is ran. And then what you do is you just kind of find your own way. You got to find your own path, and you got to keep a schedule. And if you go full time, you got to keep a schedule. If you go part time, you don't have to. You can literally go to work and come home and watch Netflix and decide when you list. But when you're full time, you can't. So you just have to keep that in mind. You got to kind of keep both those in mind. I would call Jeff full time because he is, but like you can do Uber on the side and be full time. And so Jeff, that's kind of like what you do. You're pretty much selling full time, but you're just kind of like doing your courier business on the side. Like it's not.
Yeah. Well, I encourage people to have multiple streams of income. I mean, I say all the time, like back in the day when I used to deliver pizzas, I used to deliver pizzas on Saturday, Sunday, and believe it or not, you would make $400 in 2 days. Just on Saturday, Sunday, delivering pizzas for the money you would make in tips and the money you would make from your paycheck. So, I mean, you can come up with all the different side gigs or side hustles where you can still make money and then still have, let's say if you did that 2 days a week, or let's say you did it 3 days a week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you'd still have 4 days a week to go focus on your reselling, going out looking for merchandise. But there's some people that do the opposite. They have a regular 9-to-5 job, Monday through Friday, and they only have Friday, Saturday, Sunday to go outsourcing. And then the rest of the week, they sit home and list items. So it's whatever works for you. It's whatever works for you. But the biggest thing, like Shane said, is just coming up with the schedule, with the routine, finding the merchandise, listing it, and reinvesting your capital back into your business. Those are the main 3 points that we wanted to talk about. So I guess we're going to put a book into this one, and I will see you guys over there on Shane's channel for part 4 of the podcast. So I will see you guys there. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.